And thanks everybody for showing up. Just a few quick words. So you will get the slides at the end. There's a short link inside the presentation. I will also share it in the channel. So you don't need to write everything down. You can just focus. And yeah, let's start. Maybe I start. I know it's probably not a hard sell to the people here, but I wanted to just start with some facts around why you want to do remote. I mean, you have lower costs, higher satisfaction for the employees. I have found numbers from the US. They save 11,000 euros per employee per year compared with an on-site setting. I did the math for a startup that I'm involved with currently, with 20 people around this, and it's 8,000 euros per employee per year. So it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot of money that could maybe better be invested into more employees. Yeah, you have no commute. You have more time to work. On average, people working remotely save 72 minutes per day. You have access to talent that's global and diverse. So remote companies get 4 times more applicants, and they have on average 21% more diversity. And those two things, they boost each other. I mean, if you have more applicants, you have more good applicants, and then you can really puzzle together the teams with a diverse background. For me, this is very important, and it's a very good lever to achieve this if you're not limited to the talent pool of one city. Yeah, you are more productive, you have more focus and flexibility. I found a Stanford study that says 47% more productive are people working remotely. And yeah, it's at the end, it's just a modern culture. You have a modern employer brand, on average 25% lower turnover rate. So quite some reasons to go remote if you're not already. When we're talking about working remotely, we first need to start with the fact that you are working from home. And when people heard this for the first time, they maybe have different expectations than it is in reality. Working from home, for me, has 3 aspects that are important. First is ergonomics. You need to have a good screen, a good chair, a good table, all those kind of things. They should not be, they should be on the same level than in a real office. You need to have some focus. So you cannot do remote work if you take care for a kid or 2 kids or even more. So you really need to be focused. And the third one is privacy. You probably talk about delicate things, some business secrets. So it's important to keep this also in mind. And the point that I wanted to make here, that remote work, real remote work, is something different than just working at home in a home office from a normal setup and even from a hybrid setup. To really work remotely, a quick dive into the theory about communication. So communication can be seen as a spectrum. Maybe you've heard of it already. On the one hand, you have asynchronous communication. On the other extreme, you have completely synchronous communication. Synchronous communication means same place, same time. So you be in the office on site and you talk to others. Video conference, it's still the same time, but not the same place, and so on. So we have this whole spectrum until the other extreme, where you have mail or docs, docs that you send around. This is completely asynchronous because different time, different place, and the other person is reading it whenever she or he wants. It's important to be aware that there are different tools on this spectrum of communication, because our brain has some interesting facts. So you can read 4 times faster than you can write, and you can speak 2 times faster than you can listen. So considering those facts together with the tools on this spectrum, for some things it makes more sense to write them down, because you write them down once and other people can read them asynchronously 4 times faster. For other situations, maybe it makes more sense where you need to maybe have a lot of spoken input, that you make those things synchronous. but there's also a lot of optimization potential to not do all the things where you need exchange completely synchronous. To wrap it up, this theory section. So asynchronous work is very impact focused. It's deep work. It's real contributions, and synchronous work is, in my opinion, more around alignment. You want to have alignment around things where you need fast clarity, and then you want, but then you need structured interactions. And around these two principles, async work and synchronous work, the whole remote work is, this is basically the umbrella for the whole remote work for me. And I have those are the important topics that we're talking about today, that you need to implement this in a proper way. It's about, you need living artifacts, you need to measure results, you need to have planned social interactions, and you intentionally need to build the culture. And at the end, I will give also a concrete example how this works in practice. My personal REPL, my remote engage produced loop, and you repeat. It's basically the autonomy of a real week, of a real team that I'm currently working with. Yeah, we start with the living artifacts. So the first thing that I always set up, oh, I forgot about the meme. Yeah, gossip is a very important part of every office culture. In an on-site office, information spreads naturally. This is something you need to be aware. Sometimes even information spreads that you do not want it to spread. In a remote setting also to a certain degree, but I think it's not as extreme as in a normal setting. In a remote setting, knowledge must really be spread intentionally, that it arrives the right people. And the very first thing that I do for every team is that I set up an operating system and document all the rituals. Like this is Confluence, but you can use different tools. I document all the rituals of the team. This is where I always start. I have a weekly checkout, the retro, the team days, the daily, the shaping, and so on. When is it? Who is responsible? Who's the owner of this format? And so on. This is the first thing I always start with, because it's basically like an operating system, like a basic law. There you can always go back and see how stuff is happening when somebody new picks it up. Or they can also create a fork out of one of the rituals when you maybe have an idea of how to improve it. And then all of the rituals and basically all of the pages where we collaborate as a team, as an organization, at the top is a request for comments table. So the author of such a document really thinks about from who do I want feedback, and then the person puts all the names of all the people that he or she wants feedback from, and then they react to it and they write yes, or they write yes if we have agreed on this and that, and together with a date. And so you can make sure that the people actually reading the things that are written, and not just people producing things and nobody reading it, and yeah, and then it falls between the cracks. So this is an important part. You also need the correct processes that you go through all those open documents that are for review. Another thing, a very cheap thing, is that you put a TLDR, too long didn't read, on top of every document. Another real example here, just have a small TLDR in front of this development initiatives for 1 week, for example. It's because we create a lot of documents, not you and your whole team, and you really want to have a fast overview of those documents. Another important thing that I always start with is agree on the communication expectations. So this team is using Microsoft Teams, and we write down for all of the tools, all of the other tools as well, what we are using it for. Like email is only for customer-facing collaboration. Those are our expected response times, and this person or whoever is responsible for the accounts, so that everybody has a shared understanding of the tools actually used. Another thing to work asynchronously is it's a rolling agenda, because some topics make sense to discuss in person together synchronously, because you want a lot of feedback or you need to create alignment, as I said. Then all those topics can be put on a rolling agenda from everybody in the team. And then we have a weekly meeting, and then we discuss one after another. It would not make sense to create a meeting for all of the small things because they are not urgent. But so when you have a shared point with the rest of the team together, then you can discuss all those things. Another very handy thing when you work asynchronously, instead of having a meeting, you just record a video. So this example, I wanted to show another board member how this team is working asynchronously. And so I'm eating my own dog food, and I created a video with all of the rituals and all the things, little bit more context in this presentation, but we did not find a meeting slot. So this is why I just created a video, and it's almost half an hour. Mostly I did the talking in the meeting anyway, so I just recorded it, and then the other person can just look at it when he or she has time. And she can also, in this case, she can also watch it with 2 times the speed in case somebody is a slow speaker or something like that. And those kind of videos, they're super easy to create. In this case, you used Microsoft Teams, and you can just create a meeting with yourself. You share your screen, you record the whole thing, and then you have, then you can download it. And there are other specialized tools like Loom and so on. You can also do if you want to be fancy. But at a very basic thing, you just create a meeting with yourself and you record it. Like going back to the topic of documenting things, it's a good practice that everybody in the team creates a README about him or her. So who am I? What is my role? This is not an example. This is an example from somewhere else. There's a link if you want to look some other examples up. It's just a good practice, how to interface with me, what are my quirks, what are my preferences, what are my expected return times on messages and so on. But this level of documentation you could also do on a team level. So I mean, this is a suggestion from the team topologies book. So but it works very good for remote teams, for other teams as well, like most of the things that I'm talking about today, that every team documents themselves like an API. Like you have one documentation page for every team. Here you can find the code. Here are the docs. These are our principles, how to communicate with us, and so on. Like you would describe an API, you describe also a team. It's especially important in bigger setups where you have multiple teams, that they own their page about themselves, so they can direct. They can say how others should interface with them. Ticket systems are also an important tool for reactive work. Only, in my opinion, only for reactive work. But in general, I think tickets are not good to develop features. But this is another topic from my other masterclass. But for reactive work, organizing reactive work, ticket systems are very good. The important thing is that the ticket has enough context. As if you remember, you can read 4 times faster than you can write. This is why it's important that the person creating the ticket puts in all the necessary context and not just creating a ticket with a one-liner. Then it's not working in an asynchronous setting. Then you need to have synchronous meetings again and discuss about tickets and put more details in, groom them, and so on. But yeah, if you put something in a digital Kanban board without enough information, it's not useful. It's very important to come in this habit, in this culture, that tickets have enough context from the beginning, from the person creating it. In general, about the living artifacts, try to think about working together like you code. You want to leave an audit trail. You want to have a commit log. You want to document all the things so that somebody looking something up or joining later can get all the information. And also another concept that could be applied here is to approach async work with eventual consistency. So you don't want to have any blockers if 7 of 10 people has agreed with your proposal or something like that, and this is enough. You don't need to micromanage everybody, but you on the other side, you also want to have some processes that come up with this eventual consistency, that you have the review rituals in place and so on. Next thing, let's talk about measuring results. Only measure outcomes. In a normal office, often productivity is perceived productivity is when people are sitting in their chairs. In a remote setting, this makes even less sense. In a remote setting, you really want to look only to the outcomes, because I don't monitor if somebody changes his Teams status to green at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., or 10 a.m. It does not make sense, because you will end up in micromanagement hell. It just does not make sense. Maybe some general leadership of remote teams principles. Those remote teams, they rather need alignment processes and not micromanagement. So as a leader, you should set the goal and then step back. So you need to balance guidance and trust, but you also need to trust is something you can only create if you start with it. So it's very, very important, and it feels a little bit weird at the beginning. And the often complained middle managers, I think, pretty crucial for remote teams, because they are the ones that keep the operations running and they are driving the change across the org. So it's very important that they understand all the concepts and all the principles to put in place. Yeah, talking about outcomes, it's important that KPIs are available to everyone. So here's an example from a team. Every week before the weekly, the KPIs are updated in Confluence. So they are accessible for everybody. Dashboards are also important, Metabase and so on. But this is more like then for a manager or for a leader to really dig in deeper into some things. But you need to have all the instrumentation in place that you can get all those numbers. That's important. An asynchronous tool for status updates, for example, is heartbeats format. So here we have always the same columns: progress, problems, planned, and then we have rows for the different parts of the team: product, engineering, DevOps. If this team is in a development initiative at the moment, and this development initiative will have its own row here. So this is an asynchronous format for a team to update about their status. And this is something that rolls up quite nicely. So a manager of this team can take all the input from the ground and can distill it further down to maybe create a board reporting or something else out of it. Another thing, it's from Basecamp, is something called hill charts. The idea behind hill charts is that work doesn't progress linearly, but it is rather like a hill. Like for every project or for every scope of a project, you have phases where you're figuring things out, and then you have phases that's just about making it to happen. And if teams arrange their scopes of their current project on such a hill, then it's very easy for me to see this particular team, how far are they, I like in my teams that they all also flag if they have unknowns or problems with a certain scope. So and you don't need to be in Basecamp to do this. So we are not in Basecamp, but we do the same thing in Miro. Another idea from Basecamp that we also moved to Miro is the idea of moving the needle. Here and moving the needle, the idea behind moving the needle is time progresses. Like you have just a fixed time box from November 6th to November 25th, but the progress of the project is maybe not proportional to your time box. So every week, for example, in our case, every week, this team updates the time box always, but then also moves the needle. So in this example, we have 50% of the time box and 50% of the project is done, but the team is concerned. Why is it concerned? Because this small bar here, you can see the state from last week, from the last update. So you can see, oh, this team moved back in their progress, and it is concerned, but we are still roughly 50% done of 50% of the time. This team here, it's just a little bit of the time that is progressed, but it's moving very fast. So this one is on track. And there's also a yellow state in between. And I like also to combine such a few with 3 or 4 post-its in Miro with some text, why they moved the needle to a certain point. And those two things together, like hill charts and moving the needle, is a very good asynchronous status update from a, where you can have a very fast overview of a couple of teams. And in general, you really want to reinforce team behaviors by the reporting structure. Like this is a general thing. Yeah. Next is about the planned social interactions. When you're trying to be spontaneous, but you're too much of a planner. So, in a normal office, you have a spontaneous social flow just because people are together, they meet at the water cooler, the famous water cooler, and so on. In the remote settings, you really have to have these planned social interactions. And now I start with a few tips for planned social interactions. Use timers. Structured time in meetings is important. For example, 15 minutes brainstorming, 2 minutes everybody talking about, so that you don't get too chaotic in your discussions and everything. Another thing to enforce structure is that you rotate a moderator. So this is just the top of a frame in Miro. Here we have a moderator rotation, and this is one of the most important tools to really distinguish, to really bring in the behaviors into the team. Because if everybody is moderating the weekly or the daily or also the other formats of a team, then the formats are really owned by the people, and it's not just you moderating it all the time and they are leaning back and just waiting until they have to say something. And also, if other people are doing it, then you can bring in new perspectives because they maybe find an optimization or they are maybe unhappy with how things work. So yeah, very, very important to rotate the moderators of a meeting, but not only inside, not only in the moderator of a meeting, it's also important inside of a session that you have a mechanism that makes sure that everyone is heard in a synchronous meeting. We call it round robin. I don't know if this is the official name for it, but this is an example from a roadmap planning session from a team. So we have a tier list. We took inspiration from YouTube videos using tier lists. This is the y-axis, and then we have the x-axis where we're talking about the appetite. So we have a couple of initiatives we're thinking about that are about to be done in the future, and we are then moving it either with an saying it has a higher impact and we want to spend 1, 2, or 3 weeks with this initiative. But we do this in a round-robin way. So we have, for example, 6 players, 6 people are in this session, and the first player can make 1 move, maybe moves this thing down, and then another player makes a move from here to there, and then everybody can make 1 move, says a sentence or 2 why this move was done, and it's also allowed that somebody is moving it back up. So stuff can move quite a lot, but by doing it round robin, you really make sure that the silent ones are heard, and you also make sure that people that have a lot of that people that are liking to talk a lot are also people that are the decider, that they are not dominating such a format. Because for me as a manager or as a leader, it could be I could easily put it together based on my opinion, but then everybody else is biased already. So if I can also do only 1 move, then I really get the buy-in from the rest of the team for this decision. What is now the next most important thing to do? And yeah, as I said, it really helps that I'm not biasing the team too much and that everybody has a buy-in. Then what I also have for every team is that it continuous onboarding curriculum. So the highest standard would be that a new person comes into a team, and this person can totally onboard him or herself just based on all the things that are there. And therefore, every team has an onboarding curriculum with a couple of sections that are roughly the same for all of the teams. So we have a section about what the app does and what users do with it, how to work together, about the ecosystem, code-based architecture, and how to deploy. Just in practice, it can vary from team to team. But here's an example from the how to work together section. Then there are links to other Confluence pages where we describe the tools, the rituals. I already showed you the rituals, vacation process, development process, team, where they should create their own page, and show here in this example a shape-up introduction. And even if it's the goal to completely do onboarding asynchronously, I really try to mix in meetings every now and then, like an exam. After every section, there should be a meeting with 1 or 2 real people, and then you can discuss what you have seen. If you have questions, maybe you need an account for some things. And also, in the best case, the new onboardee directly improves the documentation. If this person sees, oh, something is not up to date, then this can be the first contribution to optimize all those things. Yeah, because the better you are onboarding, the better the people can work. I mean, this is in every team like this, but I think for remote, it's super crucial because you cannot so easily have a conversation in the kitchen and see what's missing for the people. And it's really different. Like, it can take 2 or 3 days for a new onboardee to walk through all of this and watch all the videos and so on. But the contribution curve, like how productive this person is, later on, it's really astonishing how fast they can be productive, and they also get really a good feeling of all the documentation that's there already. So then they also know how to contribute, and it gets easier and easier every time. For the social interaction, it's also important that they have a tool that works. So a lot of people struggle with Microsoft Teams. So I wanted to leave this tip here for you. In Slack, as you might know, you can have threads or you can have flat conversations in a channel. In Microsoft Teams, if you work with Teams, channels inside of Teams, then you can only have threads. You cannot have a flat conversation. And if you have a group chat, you can have only flat conversations, but no threads. And a lot of people struggled because the conversation were pushed up or down when there was a new conversation and then they didn't find their thread again. So there was not a good flow. And so we really tried a couple of things. And at the end, we just emulated Slack. It just created a lot of group chats for this team. And you can have sections for multiple teams. And then we use for the basic chat things, we use just the flat chats of the group chats, and we use the Teams channels where we really need threads. So like for support cases where you really want to not lose the context. So very important that you have a tool that works for your team. And you need to have a proper channel setup, team channels, product area channels, guild, tech channels, leadership channels, transparency channels where you share things. And you need to also have culture and social channels, very, very important, because it's very easy in a remote setting to optimize the heck out of it. I tended in this direction in my last setup. And then you have really a problem of engaging people and being in touch with them. So it's also important that you have this random channels and so on. Random channel, another rant about Teams. Random channel, very important. And in some setups, it's really me posting a lot of things there that I just find on the internet. But sometimes others are picking it up as well. But it's important that you also put content in there and show yourself, and not just setting up a system and then expecting it magically to work. In general, about the social interactions, as I said, micromanagement, you will not be happy with micromanaging a remote team. You need to understand your role as a manager really as a connective tissue. You need to get a feeling of who is missing what information and who should talk to whom, and how is stuff going. This is more important than micromanaging things. And you also need in your team clear communicators, and you need to start with yourself. You need. I read books about how to write, for example. ChatGPT can help with some things, but if you only generate boilerplate with ChatGPT, it helps nobody. So it can help with your thinking, but you should not create boilerplate and then think, and then magically think everything will work. Let's talk a little bit about intentionally built culture. I don't know who has seen Severance, the movie, but in Severance, they have a big handbook where basically all of the processes and the rituals of the company is documented. And for example, there's a thing called a waffle party, which is somebody gets when he or she has a very high achievement, something very important achieved. And before the waffle party, there's a pre-waffle party egg bar social event. This was ordered by the manager in this case. It's a little bit superficial, but I think it shows the spirit of how to approach culture. So you really need to do it very, very deliberately. If not, it will not happen. Because in an office, you have a sense of belonging totally automatic because you are human among other humans, and just about the proximity, you're belonging together. But in remote, you really need to build it intentionally. One thing that I really like to do here is identify and enforce memes. So if we are in a Miro setting, I create very scrappy badges in ChatGPT. This is just a one line in ChatGPT. Make me a badge with a time bomb, because when I observe a certain behavior from somebody in the team, here we should cut scope. Or this could be a time bomb in the future. It could blow up during development. Those are terms from ShapeUp, for example. But if I see people using the terms that I want them to use or doing the things that I want them to do, then I introduce such a badge. Sometimes the team also introduces more badges then, because memes, it's like genes, like the human genome, but just as pattern. That's the origin of the word meme. If you don't know, just patterns that are stronger than other patterns, and you can do this very deliberately and very easy with just very scrappy badges from ChatGPT. Another aspect for remote teams is that they should meet regularly in person. The funny thing is they are not as efficient as when they work remote, because you remember the remote teams are more efficient than normal teams. But it's important that they meet in person to be as efficient as possible if you are in a remote setting, because only the social context makes it really smooth and makes it really a team that feels that it belongs together. For example, this team, it meets every 8 weeks in a different city, and the cities are rotated. So everyone shares the travel and the organizational effort. Everybody can see a new environment from here and then. Yeah, it's a team from edding, but I think the biggest part of the team went to the office, the headquarters of edding, for the first time, I think after 10 months or something like that, because we met all the time in a different city. And yeah, those new environments, they just spark fresh ideas and energy, and also the travel effort is shared a little bit more fairly over time. And then you have the team together, and then you really need to create bonding moments in real life, because if a bunch of people also meet in real life and they have nothing in common, they you can try to build culture as much as you want in remote, but without the aspect of meeting in person, it will not work out. And so in this team, they found that they really like to play Uno on team days, and it's really Uno in a group of 10 people it takes a long time, but it's also a lot of fun. And here even the normal Uno and the princess Uno was mixed together, because the princess thing became a little bit of a meme inside of the team. So it's important that you have something to do, that you stay overnight and not just have a quick 4-hour workshop and then head back home, that you really eat lunch together, dinner together, and maybe have a couple of beers or whatever drink you like. Yeah, it's very important, because it's very awkward if you don't have anything to do. So you I would recommend ask the team for games and not bring something by yourself. So that's really coming from the team. And yeah, you can have maybe quite some surprises there, what they are interested in bringing. Yeah, another thing, if you want to build remote culture, is that you need to treat everyone as remote. So this was a team day where one person was on another continent, but everybody has their computer open, sharing their webcam, because this remote, the conference webcams that are filming the whole room and then zooming to different people, it never works really good. I'm always disappointed by the result, or the person is over there. And so yeah, everybody is remote then. And sometimes we join with a phone if we have some sessions on a whiteboard or so, and then share it via phone. So summary: building culture remotely is awkward, but it's essential. Okay, now coming to a real life example, if the remote engage produce loop. Yeah, in office, I think it's easier in office having a quick chat. I feel in remote teams, people are, even if you can call everybody all the time, people are a little bit more hesitant doing this. So in office, you have a lot of quick chats, informal updates. But yeah, I think the pattern repeats. Really need structured communication formats for remote teams. This is the autonomy of a week. So on Monday morning starts with an async check-in. Then on Thursday, there are all the one-on-ones from the manager. Then there is a weekly synchronous meeting. And at the end of the week, there's an asynchronous heartbeat. And everything feeds into the next thing. So the one-on-ones, you as a manager, you can always look back into the check-in of the person. What has this person wanted to achieve in this week? And out of the one-on-ones, you can generate topics for the weekly. Maybe if you see how we need to educate others about certain things, and out of the weekly and what was in the one-on-ones, it's easy to generate this heartbeat. And then this heartbeat from the last week is then time to reflect what should be done on the next week. Example for an async check-in, this is the focus, other things on my plate, those kind of things. And then the weekly has a structure of a mood check-in. Then there are the heartbeats for each profession. Like I showed, we quickly go through them. They are prepared asynchronously, but we use it as kind of a forcing function. Then if we have development initiatives, they also have a heartbeat together with the hill chart or moving the needle. Then we have going through the rolling agenda. We are looking at what documents need the signature at the top, like the review, request for comments documents, because they are tagged. And then we go through vacations, and then we have some off-topic things. As I said, rotating moderator. And concrete example, a mood check-in in this team, it's always a scale. Like, for example, on a scale of classical art, how are you feeling today? Or on this black cat scale, or on the scale of German beer label monks. So you can put it's a mirror, and you can put your name next to one of the things. You can find those things easily if you Google, or on Pinterest if you look for mood scales. It's a very good warm-up, because, as I said, you really don't know what's happening in the life of the people. Did they have a sick kid at home? Are they sad because their soccer team lost, or those kind of things? You really want to find out to have some topics. Just the mood check-in, and then we have just a big vacation calendar. Like in the real office, we just put a whole year calendar in Miro with different lanes for when is somebody in vacations. We also use it to plan releases and when we are working on what, or when we're having a team day. I generated a very easy open source script to generate those calendars in case you need them. Because I found nothing like that fits our purpose in Miro prepared. And yeah, and you also have the off-topic things. So, for example, last year I was on the Nürburgring driving with BMW, and this is something that I shared afterwards. Or, for example, this week somebody got a new drone, and so he showed the first footage of the drone. We had carnival costumes and all kinds of things. And I really try to share something every week, because I feel if I, as a manager, be bold enough also sharing embarrassing things, and it's easier for the people in the team to also open up and share some things. Yeah, and this is our Miro bot in real life. Look, we have a check-in for every week. We are planning the cycles, we're planning the cooldowns, the initiatives that are working in parallel, and when is who in vacation, and is public holidays, something my script also does. And then sometimes we have some further things to do synchronously this week. I really try to minimize the number of tools per meeting, but since in the weekly checkout, I really try to bring together also the asynchronous, like that it's a forcing function for the asynchronous stuff. We're also going through the rolling agenda I showed you before. And then we also go through the review check, like what is content that still needs a signature from everybody. Has everybody read the product strategy, has some feedback there, or has read our design document on how to integrate post-hoc for full product tracking, all those things. So we repeat it every week, and the review label is only removed if the author is happy and everybody has signed it. So it's a little bit of a public shaming who has forgotten it, but it's working so far, and no bad feelings. And this was just an example, but you really want to have this level of structure for every meeting you have, and you want to have it documented, and you want that people rotate doing it. And yeah, for the daily, for how you are prioritizing your reactive work, for your road mapping, for your one-on-ones, for your cycle kickoffs, for your cycle closings. So this was just one example. And I think the other things are a little bit more individual for every team. So now coming to my closing thoughts, I start with some book recommendations. So if you really want to dive into this topic in theory, I can really recommend A World Without Email. It's from Cal Newport. It's also the author of Deep Work. Maybe you have read it. And his main point basically is that most organizations work like an hyperactive hive mind. So a single individual cannot get something done without bothering 4 or 5 people in a Slack chat. And he really has some ideas on how to tackle this. But he is not an entrepreneur, he is a professor. But if you want to have the really good ideas and understand the problems of your free working mode, or maybe why some things in remote are not working yet, this is a very, very good book. A very practical book is from James Stanier, back then director engineering or something like that for Shopify, complete remote company. Also very good book, very good practices. He also wrote 2 engineering management books, so he really knows his stuff. A very practical book. And if you want to have the highest level of inspiration, I can really recommend Turn the Ship Around. It's from a submarine captain that really turned around how a crew on a very, very bad performing submarine is working, and how to bring people to be more self-reliant and really owning things without you being the bottleneck for decisions. And yeah, then out there are some couple of good examples. 37 Signals, always an inspiration. They have publicly their guide to internal communication. You can find the links in the documentations. GitLab, remote company, they have their full company handbook online. And also Post-hoc, also a very transparent company. They have also their handbook online, also a nice thing. So my summary, remote work means more autonomy. It means more asynchronous work. But it also means time for this asynchronous work, more uninterrupted time blocks. In most cases, it makes sense to have smaller teams to reduce communication overhead. But then you have more freedom, but you also need to give more trust into the team. And if I want you to take away one thing from this, you really need to over-communicate things. Don't assume that people know stuff, and you really need to default to trust, because only then you get trust back from your team. And with those words, just a few quick words about me. I'm leading remote teams since the age of 18. Since I have led a guild in World of Warcraft, I really tried to learn how to coordinate 40 people at the same time. So I'm having now over 20 years of experience with remote teams. But my real career started a little bit later. At 24, I founded a digital agency directly after my studies. And then I founded influencer marketplace, CPO, CTO. And then I've had an interim gig of building an IoT business unit for Voigt, for hydropower digitalization. And currently I'm leading product and tech as an interim manager for edding, building digital business model in a non-digital company, also an interesting challenge. And yeah, so that's me, startup founder 2 times, infused startup culture into corporates, but I would not limit myself to one of the 2 worlds. I basically pick up challenges I found interesting, and I like to reflect about it, talk about it, write blog posts about it. So please, if you're not already friends on LinkedIn, feel free to add me, and yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you want to discuss your challenges over coffee or whatever. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for the talk. Honestly, like perfect talk. I'm not sure if you ever did like a speaker training, but like it's like such a like high quality of like your talks that you give.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot.
I never did actually.
Oh. That's very cool. Okay, so I think like a few people had to leave already. I'm not sure how much time everyone has. I would do 2 questions definitely really quickly, and then if people want to leave, you can just leave, and we will post the video afterwards anyway. And Klaus, when you have no more time, then we can just end the session. Okay. So I will just start with one of mine. I asked really in the beginning. What do you think? Why are there so many big companies, for example, like Mang, like Meta, Fang, whatever? Why do they go full back to office, or like at least do a hybrid model? Like I think even Apple does it now, going fully back.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, it's a cultural thing. I assume Apple could only become so big because of a certain working mode that worked for them, and it was an on-site working mode. So I think it's really hard for them to change completely. This is one aspect. I mean, there are other examples like Shopify. They really saw with COVID that working remotely really opens up a completely new opportunity room to do things completely different. So it was not a question for them to go back. And I think in a lot of cases, why remote fails is because the senior leadership, CEO, CTO, they are not remote. And when they are in the office, then there's an incentive for everybody else to also be in the office because they have an advantage of being in the office. So either you go fully remote and then you really need to commit. You need to commit to also as a C-level, or yeah, it will fail basically, and then you could end up with the disadvantages of both worlds.
So it's more like historically grown culture.
I think it's really hard to change the culture in a company of the size of Apple or Facebook.
Yeah, it's good. I always wondered, but like good guess. Then from Alex, I think I'm not sure if he's still here, but like yeah, he is.
Yes, I'm here.
You want to ask yourself?
No, I mean, my question was first of all, thanks for the great presentation. I appreciate this very much, and because I'm working with remote teams with 8-9 hours difference, and do you have any advice how to improve collaboration for them? Thank you.
I had never set up with such a huge time zone difference for a longer time. I mean, I had setups where 1 or 2 person were, either in India or in Brazil for a couple of months, and we adjusted the meetings basically. I mean, with 8 to 9 hours, I assume it's still possible to have core working hours of 4 hours overlap where you can have all the meetings, and then it could work very well because the others have 4 hours of uninterrupted time. But yeah, besides that, I have not. I mean, you should leverage async communication as much as possible, even because you may be even more dependent on it, and if you're in the same time zone. but besides that, I had no concrete examples in my case. We just changed the meetings to the afternoon. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Klaus.
Okay. Is there any more like direct questions? Otherwise, I just have like a quick round question, maybe. No? Okay. Did anyone ever try Gather.town? Like, I think it had a big hype during Corona, like especially in the beginning. That's when I founded my last company. And then like we went in there, had a digital office, which was more better than just having like Slack or something. So you don't have to call, you can literally just walk up to them digitally and then they get like a small ping. But it's also kind of gamey. So I'm not sure. Maybe like for more serious companies.
I'm on an advisory board of a small startup, 5 people. They are using it, and they are happy with it. For me, it would be too playful for me personally. But as I said, I also had the issue in a very early remote team that I was optimizing too much out the fun out of it. So maybe it's different for every company. I also know another company, they are using, I don't know if they use exactly Gather.town or something similar, but they only use it for full company events. Like there are 400 people and they only use it if they have all hand events and some different presentations with different speakers, and only use it for a purpose. But it's definitely worth something trying out and see if it sticks.
Okay. Yeah, I actually really liked it. It worked pretty well. It's just like something I think, especially when it works for like young, if you have a lot of young people on your team, then it's maybe more, it doesn't have this like, I don't know, nerdy kind of character to it.
Yeah.
Also really cool, by the way, that you started your career as a digital team lead in BOV. Okay, yeah, that's it from my side. I would stop the recording here. And again, thanks, Klaus, for the great presentation. It was super cool.
Thank you.